You're listening to the Fresh Hell podcast. Fresh Hell contains stories of a disturbing and often graphic nature and is intended for a mature audience. Please don't let your kids listen to this, or they might turn out like us.
Hello everyone, this is Robin Warder, host of the true crime podcast, The Trail Went Cold. If you grew up watching the classic television show Unsolved Mysteries, then this is the podcast for you. Each week, I profile a new unsolved murder or missing persons case and share all the baffling details. Afterward, I provide my own personal analysis and theories about what might have happened. This is a show for true crime buffs who are fascinated by cold cases and love to discuss them and pick them apart in an attempt to figure out the truth. So be sure to check out our podcast to learn about some truly bizarre unsolved mysteries where the trail went cold.
Welcome back, friends. I'm Johanna, still talking to you from Vienna, Austria.
And I'm Annie, just outside Boston, Massachusetts. And you just heard Robin Warder from The Trail Went Cold. Johanna, I think this is one of your favorite podcasts. You listen to this regularly, right?
Yes, it is. I really love it. Robin covers a lot of cold cases that I never heard of. Definitely go check it out if this sounds like something you could be interested in, which I'm sure it sounds like something you would be interested in.
Yeah.
I also heard that he will be attending CrimeCon 2020 in Orlando. Annie, we should go in 2021, right?
Yeah, I think it would be nice if we could. Hellions, let us know if you want us to go to CrimeCon next year and present things to you terribly in person. So, for now, why don't we dive right into today's topic? Johanna, what are you going to tell us about today?
I think most of us who are interested in true crime have cases that they are mildly obsessed with, or cases that really touch them for whatever reason on whatever level. Like for me, for example, that's the Sylvia Likens case or the Maura Murray one.
Yeah, Maura Murray is definitely one of mine too. It's just what happened. Yeah, Jean Bonnet, Lady of the Dunes. I think about these cases a lot and just wonder what really happened because, someone knows. So this is one of yours, huh?
Yeah, this week I want to talk about one of these cases that still captivate me. It happened in 1988 when I was 9 years old, and I honestly don't remember if I heard about it back then. I guess I must have, because I just asked my dad 3 days ago if it was all over the news in Austria too, because it's a German case, and he said yeah. But probably I just had it in the back of my head, only taking it in subconsciously.
Sure.
And then years later, when I saw the documentary, I was immediately hooked. And I will later on explain why I was so hooked. It's not an unsolved case. This week, I want to talk about the hostage drama of Gladbeck from 1988. And I know in English it is called the Gladbeck Hostage Crisis. In German, it's the hostage drama, so I might fall back on that terminology from time to time.
Oh, that's fine. I think that's actually really interesting because I think here, when you call something a drama, it sort of implies fiction, like it's more of a film category, or drama might insinuate that it was like an overreaction, but it wouldn't be used, I don't think, in a serious incident, which, since you're doing an episode on it, I'm going to assume this is a serious situation.
Yeah, it's pretty serious.
Yeah.
It's interesting because in German, drama can mean category, like movie category or theater category, or like in this case, a very dramatic and traumatic event. It's good that we got that cleared up because now we won't get any angry messages about it later on if I keep calling it a drama.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think it does mean exactly the same thing here. It's just the way we use the word. It wouldn't. Usually a drama would be more like the bridesmaid incident of 1986 or, the bridesmaid's drama of 1985. Sorry. So even then I said incident or, it's just not. Yeah, it's a crazy story, but no casualties would be more of a drama, I would think. So I'm going to guess yours is worse than that.
Yes, it definitely is. So it's the summer of 1988. I think this time I don't have to give too much historical background. Many of you Hellions out there lived through it, just like Annie and I did. Songs like Dirty Diana and Push It dominated the charts, and I know Annie has Push It now in her head playing on repeat. Am I right?
I do, but that was 88? Oh no. That makes me feel so old.
We're not old.
Push it.
So the Netherlands won the European Soccer Cup that year. The Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday concert took place in Wembley Stadium. Nelson Mandela would be released from prison only 20 months later after 27 years of incarceration. We wore capri leggings and biker shorts and, poofy dresses. Yes, we might have been a little bit late to the Madonna hype over here. I admit it. But we were also jumpsuits and miniskirts. And the greatest Christmas movie of all times was made.
Die Hard.
It's August 16th, 1988, and our story takes place in Gladbeck. So that's a city in the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia, and Gladbeck is 14 kilometers or 8.7 miles north of Essen. And if you listen to our episode 31, you might remember that Armin Meiwes, the cannibal of Rothenburg, was born in Essen. And of course, in 1988, this was not Germany, but West Germany.
Oh, yeah, of course, because from 1949 up until 1990, Germany was divided into two countries, West and East Germany. It's funny, when we cleaned out my grandparents' house when my aunt passed away, finding knickknacks and things, and I remember looking at the bottom side of them, and some of them said made in West Germany, and others said, most of it I think was West Germany. There were a couple of things that said made in East Germany, and it's so funny now. But yeah, the city Berlin was even separated by a wall, which meant people who were once neighbors now lived in two different countries.
Yes, and the Berlin Wall only opened the following year in 1989. I still remember seeing it on TV, how people were celebrating, climbing on the wall, driving through the Brandenburger Tor. Serious goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you remember it. Even my 10-year-old self knew that this was a historic moment.
Oh, yeah. There's a piece of it in Boston. There's a piece of the Berlin Wall that...
Oh, really?
Yeah. Paul, we'll show you where it is. Paul likes to show it to people when they come to visit.
It was weird because for me growing up, it was so normal that the Iron Curtain existed, that there were countries where we couldn't go, or even worse, that people there couldn't just leave.
Yeah.
Okay, but back to 16th of August 1988. Nobody's yet thinking about a united Europe. It will be another 12 months until the so-called Pan-European Picnic, which is today seen as one of the events that ultimately led to the fall of the Iron Curtain. And it took place at the Austrian border in Hungary, near Sopron. Fun fact. Okay, again, 16th of August 1988. I'm there now.
Okay.
7:15 a.m. Gladbeck, West Germany. Two men on a motorbike they had stolen the day before. They have pistols and ski masks with them. And the bike starts skidding. The two men fall off the bike but get back up and continue their way. Their destination is a branch of the Deutsche Bank.
Can I just say, I think if that were me, I'd have taken falling off the damn bike as a sign and just gone home. I'm not great with that. Paul, I think it drives Paul crazy because every so often we'll go somewhere and I'll just be like, well, there aren't any parking spaces. Let's just leave. And he's like...
It's not meant to be.
Yes, exactly.
So it's 7:55 a.m. Two bank clerks are about to enter the bank. They want to get everything ready for the workday ahead when two masked men force their way inside the bank, pushing the employees inside. The two masked men demand money because it's, of course, a bank robbery. At 8:04 a.m., a call reaches the police. A dentist, whose practice is located in the same building as the bank, informs them that something very suspicious seems to be going on in the Deutsche Bank at Schwächerte Street 38. And shortly after, the first police cars arrive on scene, parking across the street from the bank. The two bank robbers, who are about to leave with 100,000 German mark, which apparently nowadays, thanks to inflation, converts to 109,000 euros or $132,000. So they want to leave, but they spot the police, turn around on the spot and re-enter the bank. And the two bank clerks, a man and a woman, are now hostages, and the negotiations between the two men and, interestingly enough, between the general manager of the bank start. The robbers don't want to talk to the police directly. They demand 300,000 German mark, which is 273,000 euros or $301,000. US dollars. And they also demand a BMW 7 Series. To prove that they mean business, shots are fired in the direction of the police, but nobody gets hurt yet.
Okay.
So the money arrives first. A police officer dressed only in a Speedo has to carry it over to the front entrance, and he places it directly in front of the glass door.
Okay, and this was one of their demands so that he couldn't hide a weapon? Or was this guy just some, poor officer just trying to get his swimming in when he was urgently called into the scene? It's just such an odd Speedo. It's like, I need you to put on a Speedo.
No, it was indeed one of the demands so that the officer couldn't hide anything, a weapon, a bag, things like that.
Do you think they had to pull straws?
I guess so. But there's footage. We'll talk about it later. There's a lot of footage.
Yeah.
He could definitely wear a Speedo. It was fine.
I was going to say, did he pick a guy that looked all right in a Speedo? Yeah.
So the male hostage then crawls over to the door, a long cord tied around his neck like a leash. He opens the door and pulls the money inside the building. And while the two robbers are waiting for the getaway car to arrive, they not only keep calling the bank manager, who seems to be the only person they trust, but they also start to give phone interviews. As the police, they didn't cut the phone lines. The district attorney tries to negotiate with them. If the two robbers give up now, the DA promises to only demand the minimum sentence, which would be 6 months in prison. But the armed men do not accept this offer.
But the police they decided not to storm the bank?
Yeah, I think the problem was that the robbers and the two hostages were holding up in the bulletproof part of the cashier's room. So if the police would have forcefully entered the bank, the hostages would have been most likely shot by the robbers.
Right.
Also, the bank manager who had been negotiating begged the police to let the robbers go because they had promised to set the hostages free as soon as they got rid of the police. So, in the meantime, the police can verify the identity of one of the men. His name is Hans-Jürgen Rösner. He's 31 years old and he is well known to the police. So here is what I could find. Hans-Jürgen Rösner was born on February 17th, 1957 in Gladbeck. He had 4 sisters, 3 older than him, 1 younger. His father had a war injury. As far as I understood, it was something with the nerves in his arms or the feeling he couldn't feel his arms, something like this. The war seems to have left Hans-Jürgen's father short-fused and aggressive. He started to drink alcohol a lot. The mother, on the other hand, is quiet and passive, never protests her husband's behavior, not even when he brings his mistresses home for coffee and some cake.
No.
So Hans-Jürgen Rösner, called Hanusch, as a child, he gets blamed for everything that goes wrong, as one of his sisters later remembers. He is the constant scapegoat. At age 8, he commits his first thefts. The man who teaches him how to steal is a middle-aged man and neighbor, and Rösner will not leave this path of petty crime anymore. In 1988, he had already spent 11 years of his life behind bars, mostly for theft, robbery, burglary, these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
He was known to be violent and ruthless. I think he stabbed, when he was in prison, he stabbed a police or a prison guard in the neck. And he was wanted because in 1986 he had left prison with a day pass. I don't think you have those in the States. And he never returned.
Yeah, no. I'm surprised that he got a day pass having stabbed a prison guard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. I think that's why we don't have that here. You can get leave. I mean, I think so, for example, if you needed to go to a family funeral or for some nonviolent offenders, you might be able to be participating in something that will help you reintegrate, like classes or work release or stuff like that. But if you just want a day off for fun, then no, you don't get a day off from prison. I definitely don't think most prisoners would ever get a day off. But we have some listeners that are active in the Facebook group that I know have a lot of super extensive knowledge of our prison system. So I'm sure that they're going to let us know exactly what that situation, but that's probably why we don't do it, right? Oh, thanks so much. I just have this errand of staying out of prison. Bye.
Yeah. As you say, it's weird that he even got that with his past.
Yeah, if he's violent.
Yeah, I don't know what are the exact regulations on that, or if worse, what they were in the 80s. They might have changed a lot since then.
Sure.
I know that this is used to resocialize the criminals, but why they get to do things without supervision, I can try to find out more. There are so many different systems here, and honestly, I always assume that Germany and Austria have very similar regulations. I know that there is something that's called offener Vollzug, which allows the prisoner to basically work outside the prison and only return there in the evening.
Yeah, no, I think there'd be more like you just have house arrest here if that were the situation. I just don't see much point in prison if you can just leave, I don't know. I think I don't like that unless it's for, non-violent offenders unless there's some reason where it's going to help them and help society. But just have a day off. No, go fuck yourself.
I think it's usually just for non-violent offenders.
Yeah. But, there are people here that don't get a day off work. So, I don't know why this guy thinks he gets a day off prison. I don't know. Anyway.
Okay. I don't know. Back to Rösner. So, he hadn't returned to prison, which means that at the time of the bank robbery, Hans-Jürgen Rösner had been on the run for approximately 2 years already. On the run is a bit of a stretch here, because on the run would mean he's hunted down by the police. It seems as if the police was looking for him, but they just were not very thoroughly looking for him, if you know what I mean.
Sure, yeah.
I think the identity of the second robber was revealed much later, but let's talk about him right now. His name was Dieter Degowski. He was 32 years old, and him and Hans-Jürgen Rösner had been friends since they both had attended the same special needs school. Dieter Degowski was born June 4th, 1956 in Gladbeck. He had 3 brothers and 2 sisters, and very early on it's already obvious that he suffers from some developmental delays. Later in life, doctors will find that a brain injury might be the root of it, but they couldn't determine if it was already existent at birth or if it just came later in life. He only learns late how to walk. For a very long time, he just kind of drags one leg or hops around, these kind of things. He wets the bed until age 10. So in school, he meets Hans-Jürgen Rösner, and the two become friends immediately, because Rösner seems to be the first one to not bully him for not being able to read or write, or for this kind of issues he has. Rösner takes his friend to meet the neighbor, and now Degowski too starts to steal from stores all around the city.
Seriously, that fucking neighbor.
I think that he used them because they were minors under the age of 14 and they couldn't be charged.
Yeah, and it sounds like they also weren't coming from a place of high intellectual capability.
Yeah.
Easily manipulated.
I think they liked having some recognition by an older person.
Of course they did. Yeah.
So at age 19, Dieter Degowski, he finally has to go to prison for the first time. He's sentenced to 18 months. But at least one positive thing comes from it. There, behind bars, he finally learns how to read and write.
Well, that is something good.
In those years after school, Rösner and Degowski, they didn't stay in touch, but they meet again in 1983 in the correctional facility of Werl. I think Degowski had to serve a 6-month sentence there or something like this. And after prison, Dieter Degowski is mostly homeless and he has to rely on welfare. He starts to drink and he sometimes takes barbiturates. A couple of weeks before the robbery, Rösner invites Degowski to his apartment, they drink beer, they pop some pills, and Rösner convinces his old classmates that they need one big last coup, one thing to start a new life, and they decide to rob the Deutsche Bank branch in Gladbeck. Now back to the bank, back to August 16th, 1988. So the car finally arrives around 8 p.m., which means by now this has been going on for roughly 12 hours. But it's not a BMW. The police didn't have the requested car type ready, equipped with a tracking device, so Rösner and Degowski have to make do with a white Audi 100.
Oh, the horror. Paul would probably have... Paul's an Audi guy. He has an Audi that's old enough to drink. But yeah, it's... One German luxury car is the same as another, to me.
So the car has to be parked immediately in front of the glass door, the main entrance to the bank, to make it extremely hard for the police to stop anybody from getting into the car. At 9:47 p.m., Rösner, Degowski, and the two hostages leave the bank, enter the car, and they drive off, closely followed by a bunch of journalists and camera teams, and, of course, in some distance, the police. So now comes a lot of, they went there and there and there, but bear with me, please.
Okay.
The first stop is at a gas station. There they buy several cartons of cigarettes. Then they buy some candy and beer. Then they drive to a pharmacy, they get some uppers. Rösner walks into what you might call like a diner or maybe some sandwich joint, and he introduces himself as the, quote, Gladbeck bank robber, end quote, and he orders 10 meat patties, a chicken, and a pork chop for takeaway.
No. Oh, wow.
Yeah, all the bank robbery makes hungry, apparently.
I mean, that's also a lot of food for 4 people. Sorry, I'm not trying to judge, but 10 meat patties, a chicken, and a pork chop? That's, oof. But I mean, I guess it makes sense that the police stayed further back, because First of all, they promised not to follow them. And second of all, they've got a tracking device on the car, right?
Yeah. Exactly. But of course, Rösner, he suspects that they are being tracked, and the first thing they want to do is they want to get another car. Another problem is that the media keeps reporting almost unfiltered, so the two gangsters are aware that the police is following them. They can hear it via...
Of course, listening to the news on the radio, yeah. Oh, God. What a kerfuffle. Well, for right now, I think it's going to get a lot worse than kerfuffle status. If I know you, this is gonna take a dark turn.
We're still laughing, but it's serious.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful. It's just, this is what would happen to me. Like, I'd be taken hostage and then be forced to run errands with somebody. like,
Get me my dry cleaning,
yeah,
my
exactly.
prescription from the pharmacy, and 10 meat patties, please.
Right? I feel like that's what would happen to me. I'm not going grocery shopping. I will not, sir.
Okay, as I said, they need a new car, and Rösner really has his heart set on a BMW. They stop at another gas station. Rösner walks in and asks for the owner of the black BMW 635 that is parked outside. And nobody answers, because who wants to give up his BMW? So he fires a shot, only missing the people present by an inch. He leaves again. Outside, he stops another BMW, forces the driver to leave the car. They get into the car, they drive off, and Rösner realizes that the car is too old and doesn't really satisfy his needs.
Okay, I'm starting to understand why you call this a drama. Dear Lord, these people.
Rösner, Degowski, and the two hostages return to the first gas station, where they had bought the cigarettes.
Really?
There's a police officer, and he had just finished his work day after he had been assigned to the bank robbery the whole day, and on his way home he just stops at the gas station to fill up his car, and he encounters the two kidnappers, and Rösner recognizes the officer and takes his gun and radio. Okay, so now they have 3 pistols, and they have the radio, and the police is forced to change their radio frequency. But the police is also successful, because they had planted a Mercedes 230 at the gas station. On board is another tracking device, and they were hoping that Rösner would switch cars again, that he sees the Mercedes and is like, okay, let's take this car. They drive off with the bugged car, and the police can now track them once more. Okay, so what's next? Next is around 1 a.m. on 17th of August, Hans-Jürgen Rösner decides to pick up his girlfriend, which is a woman named Marion Löblich.
Well, this is unexpected. He's a romantic. But who are these people? It's like, this is the most bizarre... I get why this is called a drama.
It's getting so much more bizarre.
Okay, super.
Okay, so the two bank clerks are already held hostage for 17 hours. By the way, I know that I haven't mentioned the hostages' names so far. This is not out of disrespect. On the contrary, I only found what appears to be the names after really some extensive digging, and it looks as if they wanted to be kept out of the center of attention.
Yeah, if you had to dig, then they don't want the attention. I think we've learned that, haven't we?
Their wish of staying anonymous is way more important, and therefore no names, no other background information on them.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can all imagine they were terrified and were absolutely desperate to return home safely.
Yeah, of course. And I think you said in the beginning it was a man and a woman?
Yeah. Okay, so they pick up the girlfriend, Marion Löblich. She was 34 years old at the time. She was born on 14th of April 1954 as Marion Irma Müller, second oldest child of a total of 8. Like many, many other people after World War II, her family struggles to make ends meet. Marion has to help her mother from an early age. She has to take care of her younger siblings. And at age 16, Marion finds a way to escape her restrictive home. She meets her first husband. She gets pregnant and marries the young man. Her first daughter is born, and 2 years later Marion is pregnant again, but the marriage has already failed by that time. Her husband had started an affair with Marion's best friend, and the couple gets divorced in 1975. Around that time her second daughter is born. So now at age 19, Marion is a single mom to an infant and a toddler. But only 1 year later, Marion is married again, this time to a boatman who himself has 3 kids. So the family of 7 moves to Gladbeck. The husband is gone most of the time because, boatman.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a hard worker. He provides well for Marion and the children. He actually sounds like he was a good man. The couple divorces in 1978 because at that time Marion had already met her soon-to-be third husband. This guy, he's the complete opposite of husband number 2. He doesn't like to work.
Oh.
He works when he feels like it. Yeah, but most of the time he prefers to spend his day at the local watering holes. Yeah, and I should mention that her husband, the husband number 3, is friends with Hans-Jürgen Rösner. Marion will later say that husband number 3 was her first true love. He was strong, he was charming and tender. But she also stated that he was raving with jealousy. She felt that if he was that jealous, he must truly love her, right?
Oof.
Some words of advice. Jealousy doesn't mean love. It mostly means insecurity or possessiveness. Annie, you want to say something about that?
No, I agree. A little jealousy that's all right. That's healthy. But when you have someone in your life that you would describe as raving with jealousy, that's not sexy. It's sad. It's someone who needs therapy and not a romantic partner.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
In 1980, Marion's third child, this time a boy, is born. I know all of the names of the children, but I don't think the names should matter in this story.
No.
So, yeah. Husband number 3 he's a lazy ass. Let's call it as it is. She now has 3 kids and works often up to 19 hours a day. So during the day, she works in a restaurant, and during the night, she works as a taxi driver. Her husband starts an affair with a woman who works as a dispatcher in the taxi company that Marion works for.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm. Also, Marion's children start to show signs of very severe mental health issues. They struggle in school. The eldest daughter soon has to live in a government-run protectorate, and the second one has to repeatedly stay at psychiatric hospitals. The doctors tell Marion that most likely the home life, especially the tension between her and her third husband, are the reason for her children's problems. Marion finally considers divorce. She now has to leave the couple's apartment, so she's basically homeless. She has 40,000 German mark debt. She abuses alcohol and pills, and she often thinks of suicide. But she has one person left who she trusts and who she confides in, and his name is, you might have guessed it, Hans-Jürgen Rösner, who, if you remember, is running from the police since 1987. The couple finds an apartment. During the day, Rösner cleans and cooks, and during the night, he commits robberies.
Living the dream. Well, at least he helped with the chores.
Everybody said that he was very tidy.
Oh.
Yeah, but he was also aggressive and violent towards her. He threatens her, and he forces her to join in on sex parties with friends.
Oh, come on.
I feel bad for her.
Oh, yeah. She sounds like she has mental health issues of her own that are untreated. And
yeah.
Yeah.
So Marion lives in a daze of alcohol mixed with barbiturates. She often can't even really remember the things that happened the night before. She's kind of under Rösner's spell. So when she sees the news about the bank robbery turning into a hostage situation, she gets ready and she waits. So when Rösner shows up around 1 a.m. that night, she doesn't even hesitate for 1 second. She takes the gun he hands her, puts on a mask, and gets in the car. And the police only realizes all this an hour later. They had no idea that the bank robbers had made a stop to pick up another person.
Wow. Yep. Okay.
So they now drive around aimlessly. Around 3:20 a.m. they stop at a highway rest stop in Grönegau. They order coffee and sandwiches, and an undercover police team is sent inside, a man and a woman, and they act as a couple. They sit down at a nearby table and they watch, and they see Rösner and his girlfriend get up and they go to the restroom, and Degowski stays behind at the table with the 2 hostages. Now this would have been the perfect moment for the police to seize him and free the hostages, but the chain of command stalls the operation, and Rösner and Löblich return to the table before the police is even ready to take any action. I think that's one of the biggest of all the missed opportunities.
Yeah, that's awful that they weren't able to, take advantage of that opportunity.
Let's pause here for a moment for a quick word by our sponsor, Best Fiends. And you're way ahead of me in this absolutely adorable mobile game.
Yeah, I just passed level 600. I just love how the challenges they're constantly changing, so you don't get bored trying to do the same thing over and over again. And the other thing I love about this game that I just feel like separates it from others is that you can spin that prize wheel twice every 10 minutes to earn rewards and help you advance your characters and beat levels. It's definitely my favorite game to play when I just need to take a break from all the murder research.
Yeah, it's perfect to take your mind off the horrible, horrible things out there, and the bugs, they're stinking cute.
So cute.
I love to collect and train them. I'm taking a flight tomorrow, and I love that I don't need mobile connection to play, so this will definitely keep me busy on the flight to Sarajevo.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So listen, please engage your brain with fun puzzles and collect tons of cute characters. Trust us, with over 100 million downloads, this 5-star rated mobile puzzle game is a must-play.
Download Best Fiends free on the Apple App Store or Google Play.
That's Friends without the R. best fiends.
Okay, back to our story. The Odyssey continues. Around 8 a.m. 17th of August 1988, they stop at a cafe to get some breakfast. The owner of the cafe doesn't realize who just entered his place. This horrible situation has been going on for roughly 24 hours now. Can you even imagine?
I really can't.
So the police assumes that the criminals would try to get to the close-by Dutch or Belgian border, but instead they start to head northeast towards Bremen, where they arrive around noon. It's getting so crazy right now. Okay, ready?
Ready.
They park their car and Hans-Jürgen Rösner takes his girlfriend on a shopping tour.
What?
They buy clothes, eat some street food.
Who are these people? What is even... Okay.
Degovsky once more stays behind. He's watching the hostages. He's super tired. Apparently he even falls asleep for a couple of minutes. And then he leaves the car to pee. Right next to the car, but he's outside of the car.
Oh.
Again, the police misses this chance to end the hostage situation.
Oh. All right. He didn't actually, leave and go into a restroom to pee. He just...
No. Public urination.
Yeah, well, add that to the list of crimes. Oh, that's awful that and the hostages, of course, couldn't probably make a run for it when he left them, because it's not like he went off into a store to pee.
Yeah, and plus I think they were just really scared to screw things up.
Sure.
I'm sure they were still hoping that the police would end the ordeal soon enough.
Well, plus I would imagine if you were one of their hostages, it's just all so bizarre. It seems like they haven't been, don't get me wrong, obviously they're being mistreated because they're being held against their will, but it sounds like they're being fed and they're being, it's... Yeah,
they're not hurt or anything. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So maybe they feel like if they just go along with things, it'll be okay.
So Hans-Jürgen Rösner, he obtains a BMW from a car rental.
Wait, a car rental? Jesus Christ, this BMW fixation. I can't imagine taking the time to rent a car. It was no small amount of paperwork. And on one of those printers where it's just beep, 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 just sitting there as the dot matrix, just back and forth, just waiting.
Okay, full disclosure, he didn't fill out any paperwork, obviously. What happened is he went in there and he told them who he was and demanded a car.
Of course he did.
The employee had no idea what was going on or what to do, so she had to phone headquarters, and I think the headquarters had to phone the police, and whatever. In the end, he gets his BMW.
I don't know why, I don't know why I didn't immediately realize that that's what had happened. I'm literally imagining them place to place, all these different demands, and stealing guns from cops and driving all over the place. And then suddenly he's just in line at Budget Rent a Car, and it's do 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 do, a little bit of a dot matrix in the background mixing in. And yeah, sorry, this all makes more sense now. Okay, so at gunpoint, he violently rents another car at gunpoint.
He rents a car, yeah. He has a BMW. That's all that matters to him.
He gets his BMW. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition.
Okay, BMW. They continue their drive in this new car that is not traceable by the police. The police, therefore, needs to stay closer, which agitates the kidnappers. Around 6:20 p.m., Rösner takes the female hostage inside a little grocery store and she calls the police. And she complains about them being too close, that if the police would stop following them, she says they would have already set free. Quote, "If they shoot us, it's your fault," end quote. And she also says that, quote, "I trust them more than I trust the police," end quote.
Oh.
Then Rösner snatches the phone from her, yells that the police should disappear, and outside the store he fires a couple of shots in the air.
Okay. I mean, that's just awful if she actually means that. But seeing all the chances that the police had to kind of stop this from escalating that they missed, I mean, I wasn't there. I don't want to judge, but it seems like mistakes were made.
Oh, definitely. And I can also understand the sentiment of the hostage. I mean, they spent now 35 hours or something like this with them.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, it's 7 p.m., 17th of August. The second act of this drama starts. Because if you think that those two hostages were all, you are very mistaken, because it got so much worse.
Oh, it always does.
Okay, 17th August 1988, 7 p.m. 35 hours since the bank robbery. Rösner, Degowski, and Löblich, they use uppers to stay awake, but they are tense, they are stressed out. The situation deteriorates. I think we can all imagine under how much pressure they must have been.
Oh, yeah. Plus, if they're taking uppers, if they're on stimulants, they're not really known for creating a mindful, deliberate thought process, calm. You don't do a lot of deep cleansing breaths on speed, I imagine,
Yeah. Plus the alcohol.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the lack of sleep. It's a hot mess.
Yeah, it was summer, yeah.
Yep, literally then, see?
So the three take the 2 hostages and walk across the street, where the number 53 bus is about to drive off. On board, 32 passengers. Among them, 15-year-old Emanuele de Giorgi, his 9-year-old sister Tatjana, 18-year-old Silke Bischoff, and her friend, 18-year-old Ines Voigtle. Emanuele and Tatjana, they are children of an Italian family. Tatjana had just finished her German classes and she wanted to take the bus home like always. It was pure coincidence that she met her older brother on the bus. She sits down next to him. Silke Bischoff met up with her friend Ines after work. They both get on the bus 53 to go home. They all watch in horror as 3 armed people and 2 hostages enter the bus. I think another hostage later said she thought it's Canet camera.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So they enter the bus. The bus driver tells them that his shift is almost over and they let him go because apparently off time is very important to them.
Oh, well, listen, I do feel like that's one of the things that unites humanity, isn't it? It's our cherished time off of work. Probably more so here, because I think the United States has some of the lowest vacation time of any country. I think we're like the worst, along with Japan, Thailand, maybe? Definitely Japan and us, but it's bad here. So the bus driver gets off. That's good.
Yeah, they start to give interviews outside of the bus. Because the reporters are always there, the media is there, they are closer than the police is, yeah?
Yeah.
So Rösner says things like, quote, "My body in there is extremely dangerous," end quote, or, quote, "I don't give a fuck about my life, the last resort is this," end quote, and he puts his gun in his mouth, indicating, of course, that he would commit suicide. And then the reporters ask him about the innocent people inside the bus, and he looks kind of, when you watch the video, he looks kind of worried for a second, and then answers, quote, "Not my fault," end quote. They also let a reporter team on board of the bus to film the faces of the hostages, and this video material is then handed over to the police. It's getting so bad now.
Yeah.
So at home, Aldo Di Giorgi is worried. His younger daughter, Tatjana, is late. She didn't return on time from her German classes, and he starts looking for her around the neighborhood. When he doesn't find her, he heads over to the police to report her missing. And there he learns that a bus had been taken hostage, and he and all the other people who are already there, who are missing loved ones, they are brought into a room to watch the videotape from inside the bus. They tell them whenever they recognize someone, they are supposed to say stop. So Aldo watches the tape, and then in horror, he sees his daughter Tatjana and he says stop. And he wants to leave the room, but the police tells him to keep watching, and then he sees Emanuele. Stop. So Aldo not only has 1 but 2 children on bus 53.
That's an absolute nightmare. It sounds awful to say. I'm glad they were together. So at least they didn't feel like they were going through this alone. But, that's awful, that poor father.
So in the meantime, Rösner and Degowski, they let 5 people off the bus. I think those 5 people were elderly people that they let go.
Okay.
A new bus driver arrives, and at 9:45 p.m., the bus leaves the station, heading north, and now followed closely by even more reporters, and further back the police. 40 minutes later, the bus arrives at the highway rest stop Grundbergsee, and finally, after almost 40 hours, the 2 bank hostages are set free. They are exchanged for 2 journalists. Dieter Degowski is interviewed for the first time now. He's holding a gun to Silke Bischoff's head. The journalist asks her if she thinks that he could really pull the trigger, and she replies no. And Degowski shrugs his shoulders and says, quote, "Too young," end quote, indicating that she just doesn't understand.
Yeah.
So Silke's family only realizes that their daughter is passenger on the bus when they see the front cover of the newspaper the next morning. Because they hadn't missed her, they thought that she would be sleeping over at her boyfriend's place. And the boyfriend thought she was heading home to her family. It's actually Silke's grandfather who called Silke's mother, telling her what he just saw in the newspaper.
Oh God, I can't even imagine.
There at the rest stop, Marion Löblich takes several female hostages to the restroom, and it is there and then that a police task force decides to arrest her. No such order was ever given. It appears as if the two police officers just decided it by themselves. So once Rösner realizes that his girlfriend is not coming back, things inside the bus escalate. He threatens to shoot hostages if the police doesn't return Marion immediately. So the commander orders to release her at once. They had already been driving off with her in a car, so they had to turn around, bring her back. And when they try to uncuff her, the key breaks in the lock, and it takes several minutes too long to take them off. A shot is fired inside the bus. Dieter Degowski has shot Emanuele in the head. He had tried to protect his little sister Tatjana. Marion Löblich returns only a few moments too late.
So awful.
So the two journalists pull Emanuele's body out of the bus. They hold up his head to get better photos.
What? The actual... Is he alive? He's not alive.
That's so sad, really.
Ugh, I can't believe that... How... Oh, okay.
So now the police realizes their next big mistake because no ambulance is nearby and it will take 20 minutes until Emanuele can be transported off. And he will die in the hospital only shortly after.
It's awful. I just... And they're taking photos of him shot in the head for newspapers.
Mm-hmm. And we will definitely not post these photos because I think we both agree that this behavior of the media is so fucking messed up.
Yeah, agreed. They should have been charged for that.
Imagine being the father.
I can't. If all these media were following behind them, why couldn't the media have thrown him in the back of a car and rushed him to the hospital?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There are so many things that could have been done other than exploiting his... Yeah.
So 15 minutes after the deadly shot was fired, the bus continues the drive. They are now heading towards the Dutch border. And this night will cause a second death, because while chasing behind the bus, a 31-year-old police officer crashes his car. He dies in the accident. So in the bus, Rösner and Degowski are now completely disinhibited. They completely lost it.
Yeah.
So Rösner fires shots at a taxi full of journalists that has been following them. Degowski fires at a motorbike that tries to pass them. I think there was also journalists on them with cameras. Fucking journalists, honestly.
It is unbelievable, yeah.
Around 2:30 a.m. the bus crosses the Dutch border and stops. I think it was because when he was in prison, Hans-Jürgen Rösner had heard that the Dutch police is much nicer than the German police, which was not the case. They were way harder. They immediately told him they are not negotiating with the kidnappers until they release all the children and stuff like that. Then there's an accident. I think Rösner was handling a plastic bag or something like this, and he accidentally fires a shot. Well, the bullet hits Marion Löblich's thigh and injures the bus driver's hand. And then because of that, a shootout with the police starts. But thankfully, nobody else gets hurt. The kidnappers ask for a new car.
Let me guess, is it another BMW?
Yes, of course. So the police brings a BMW 735. This car is not only equipped with a tracking device, but also the police can now listen to them via bugs, and they can remote control the engine, like, turning it off via remote control.
Oh, well, that's fucking fancy, especially for 1988.
Yeah, definitely. The car arrives, and they let all except 2 of the hostages go. Emanuele de Giorgi finally arrives home. She tells her father Aldo to, quote, "Take it off, Papa," end quote. And at first he doesn't understand, and then he sees that his daughter's legs are covered in her brother's blood.
That poor family, it's devastating.
The family de Giorgi returns to Italy. Emanuele is buried in Surbo, Italy, that's located in the south of Italy, right on the hill of the boot-shaped country. 25,000 people attended Emanuele's funeral.
Wow.
Okay, so most of the hostages are now set free, except for 2. Silke Bischoff and her friend Ines Feutle. It looks like Dieter Degowski had taken a liking to the young and very pretty Silke. He told her, quote, "I'll take you with me," end quote. Hans-Jürgen Rösner, Dieter Degowski, Marion Löblich, and their 2 hostages, Silke Bischoff and Ines Feutle, drive off, heading back to the German border. Final act of the drama. It's now 18th of August 1988, 10 a.m. The hostage crisis started 50 hours ago.
Wow.
The car is now parked in the inner city of Cologne in a pedestrian area. Quickly, the car is surrounded by journalists and, how did you call them?
Oh, looky-loos?
Yes, right. The car is surrounded by journalists and looky-loos. But also some undercover policemen dressed as photographers are in the crowd. I read that that's so bad. I read that the reporters showed the kidnappers photos of policemen so they could not be fooled by them.
What? Who are these people? Are they just, it seems like they're deliberately trying to keep this going just to get more ratings. Yeah. And also, is this legitimate journalism or are these like tabloid paparazzo rag kind of stuff?
Both. Unfortunately, both.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah.
Rösner, Löblich, Degowski, they all give interviews, but also Silke Bischoff, she's smiling bravely at the cameras. She talks to reporters while Dieter Degowski is sitting in the back of the car between the two hostages and he keeps pointing his gun at Silke. Marion Löblich states, quote, "They are tired," the hostages she means, "they are tired but feeling okay, we don't want to harm them," end quote. And she adds that what happened yesterday was on the police and not on them. The police is actually planning to seize the gangsters right there in the inner city of Cologne, which I think would have been a bloodbath. There were so many people around. They were trying to replace the real reporters one by one with undercover policemen to not raise suspicion, but there were so many other people there, I don't think that would have been a good idea. Anyway, Rösner, he gets nervous, he wants to continue his drive, but the car can't move because the huge crowd is blocking them.
It's crazy.
Another crazy thing, they were even served coffee by the reporters. You can see all of it in the videos.
Yeah, wow, of course, because we were filming everything.
Rösner gets out of the car and he points the gun at the reporters, telling them to make way. And then one of the journalists gets into the car. He's promising them to guide them through the city to the highway. They drive off and the other reporter teams follow close behind.
That's really pretty remarkable as, you know, no matter what kind of journalist you are, that you would put yourself now as another hostage in this situation, just to get the inside scoop.
So they get to the highway around 1 p.m. Rösner tells the journalist to get out of the car and then they drive off. On the highway, or as we call it here, the Autobahn, they realize that they're not being followed anymore and all of the 5 of them, they cheer. The kidnappers hand out beers, telling the girls that they will be able to leave soon. What they don't know is that the police has blocked off the highway by now. Rösner stops the car on the side of the road for a minute to look for pursuers, and when he wants to drive off again, an armored car from the Special Task Force appears behind them and rams the rear of the getaway car. The cars stop and a heavy shootout ensues. Silke tells her friend to get out of the car and to jump in the roadside ditch, and Ines, after hesitating for a few moments, does so and survives. Silke Bischoff, the bright young girl who was on her way to become a paralegal and who had such a bright future ahead of her, she dies in this car on the highway A3, hit by what is officially claimed one of Hans-Jürgen Rösner's bullets. I think it's several people, including Ines Feutle, who think that Silke was actually hit by a police bullet. Which makes sense because the car was hit 62 times on the side where Silke was sitting, so.
We just had a situation like this recently, didn't we, with a UPS driver taken hostage, and there were...
Really?
Yeah, the police used other cars as a shield, and somebody was shot in the shootout. One of the cars that they were using as a shield, trying to hide behind the guy driving that car, got hit. It was really sad.
So Rösner, Löblich and Degowski survive and they are arrested. After 54 hours, the Gladbeck Hostage drama, or Gladbeck Hostage Crisis, came to an end. On March 22nd, 1991, Hans-Jürgen Rösner and Dieter Degowski are found guilty of kidnapping and hostage-taking. It's a whole bunch of things they are prosecuted for. Degowski is also found guilty of murder and Rösner of manslaughter because the prosecution cannot prove that he killed Silke intentionally or if he pulled the trigger accidentally out of reflex when he himself was hit by a bullet. Which I honestly, if it was one of Rösner's bullets that killed Silke Bischoff, I mean, that man is absolutely the worst, but I really don't think he shot her in that situation on purpose.
Right, but I would still say even if she was shot by the police, it was their fault. Like, they're the ones responsible for the entire situation.
Degowski and Rösner are sentenced to life in prison, Hans-Jürgen Rösner also to preventive detention. Remember, I always keep saying this, life sentence does not mean for life. The only way to keep people locked up for the rest of their life is the preventive detention, which is used for people that are deemed to be a danger to society.
Yeah, I really hate that. I just think life in prison should mean life in prison.
Yeah, and I think most people here definitely agree with you.
Yeah.
Marion Löblich was sentenced to 9 years. She breaks up with Rösner and is released after 6 years on parole for good conduct. She gets married a 4th time in 2004.
Of course she does.
I read somewhere that she didn't have any more contact with her first 3 children, but I'm not sure if that's true.
For their sake, I hope it is.
Yeah. Dieter Degowski receives a lot of mail from female admirers, which I absolutely don't get, but okay.
Yeah, nope.
He marries one of them, but the marriage ends in divorce soon after. And in 2018, he's released from prison and he is given a new identity.
I really hate that. It makes me angry. It reminds me of Karla Homolka, right? Like, she's out living her life, totally different name.
Yeah.
Like, now you're going to get to live the rest of your life peacefully, but the families of the people you murdered and the lives of people you traumatized, they don't get any peace. You know, they spend the rest of their lives grieving, trying to overcome what he put them through, and he just gets a new identity and gets to carry on like it never happened. Fuck that guy. I hope he gets herpes and all manner of unpleasant things. He should have just died in prison. Life in prison should be life in prison for people like that.
Hans-Jürgen Rösner, he doesn't stay out of trouble. He is caught with heroin in 2009. He is engaged to a woman in 2012, but as far as I could find out, they didn't go through with the wedding. In 2015, he is allowed to leave prison for a couple of hours, this time escorted by 2 prison guards, so supervised. In 2017, he can make another day trip. He can leave prison for 4 hours. I think also supervised, of course, this time. He goes shopping and he eats some French fries. What else do we know? He finally started therapy in 2017. He suffers from diabetes and hepatitis C, and he is still in prison.
I hope he chokes to death on a fucking French fry. God, these people, I'm glad he's at least still behind bars.
So remember, in the beginning I said that this case always stuck with me. I think the reason for it are the plethora of photos and videos that are available. As always, we will post links and sources to our Facebook group. When you look at the photos and videos, you will know what I'm talking about. It seems unreal. I sent 2 or 3 photos, you remember? And I told you this is not a reenactment.
Yeah, I was shocked. You're going to be shocked.
We're not used to having this kind of close-up view on crime while it happens.
No.
Is that even something we should have? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Absolutely not. And just the fact that the journalists were helping the criminals, it's so upsetting and problematic, to say the least.
Well, the Gladbeck Hostage Crisis caused an uproar because of the role of the media played in it. Most of the times they were closer to the criminals than the police. Journalists took over the role of negotiator and, as you said, at times even helped the criminals. The head of Germany's largest journalists union, the DJV, Deutsche Journalistenvereinigung, I think, Michael Konken, has referred to the incident as, quote, the darkest hour of German journalism since the end of World War II, end quote.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
The German Press Council added the guideline to the press code that hostage takers were not allowed to be interviewed anymore, that they were not supposed to be given any kind of platform on the media. Also, the role of the police was discussed very critically. I do think that mistakes have been made. I think a lot of mistakes have been made. But also, I can only imagine that the police was absolutely not trained or prepared for a situation like this. I don't think there was a situation like this ever before.
Yeah.
The spot where Silke Bischoff died is marked with a lime tree that was planted there and a steel sculpture that shows 62 bullet holes. That's exactly the amount of bullet holes the getaway car showed after the shootout with the task force. Last year, a plaque was put up next to the bus station in Bremen-Huckelriede, where 29 years earlier, the bus 53 was kidnapped by Rösner, Degowski and Löblich. On the plaque, the names of the 3 people who died in the Gladbeck Hostage Crisis: Emanuele de Giorgi, Silke Bischoff and Ingo Hagen. That was the police officer who died in the car accident. Next to the plaque, the city Bremen planted a ginkgo tree, which is a symbol of hope, friendship and longevity and the light in the darkest hours.
Well, that was certainly a lovely gesture. Johanna, thank you. That was awful, and I didn't know any of that.
There's a really good movie. I think it's available on Sundance Channel. Is that a thing? Sundance Channel? Yeah, right?
Yeah, Sundance Channel, yep.
It's called 54 Hours. It's a German movie. It's in 2 parts. I can highly recommend. It's very authentic. You've got something good for me?
I do. So I think I mentioned before in passing that I'm rereading this series known as the Agent Pendergast series, and it's by Douglas Preston and Lee Child. And I've been laughing, and I keep meaning to text you about it, except that I read it like before bed, and then the next morning I always forget. But I think I'm on the 8th or 9th book in the series now, and I'm enjoying them again very much, but also there's like an element of our show in every one of the books. So like the one I finished, there's like spontaneous human combustion was in it, and it's just funny serial killers and lots of museums and just, ancient Egypt and all these sorts of, and it's just making me laugh because I'm going back and I'm like, oh, look, all these, that's why I like this series so much. It's all the things I'm fascinated with. So yeah, the Agent Pendergast series, I would recommend that definitely.
I really want to check them out.
Yeah, I think you'd like them.
I haven't read them yet. My something good this week. I'm going to Sarajevo tomorrow for 4 days. We will have a lovely time just relaxing, walking around the city. I will be eating a lot of cevapi with kaimak.
What is cevapi with kaimak?
Cevapi with kaimak cevapi. That's like... what's cevapi? It's like meatballs, but just like in stick form. They have the shape of fish fingers, but it's like meat patties.
Okay.
So I will be ordering 10 meat patties for takeaway, please.
Excellent.
Kaimak is kind of cream cheese.
Oh, okay. That sounds good.
I really like Sarajevo. If you ever have the chance, you should definitely visit. It has a beautiful inner city. Has a lot of sad history to the city, but very beautiful. I will take a picture, as promised, a photo on the Latin Bridge.
I was just going to say, don't forget the bridge.
Yeah, where they shot our Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
Amazing. I'm jealous. Have a wonderful time. I hope you have a great time. I can't wait to see pictures. So yeah, listeners, please do take a moment and leave us a review, especially if you're able to do it on iTunes. That really actually helps our show out a lot because it helps people find us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Please come say hi on Twitter and Instagram.
And please come join our Facebook group where you'll find all of our photos and other very interesting, macabre history nerds chatting about all manner of terrible things. And until next week, if you're going through hell,
keep going. Tschüss.
Bye.